You know what's worse than being scammed for your money? Being scammed for your loneliness. Because when they take your cash, you can earn it back. But when they take your hope for real connection, that stays gone forever. I learned that on a rice farm in northern Thailand, where love turned into a prison, I never saw coming. If our stories resonate with you, don't forget to like, comment, and tell us where you're watching from. My name is Kenneth, and I'm a 46-year-old retired construction foreman from Ohio. I came to Thailand for what was supposed to be a simple 2-week vacation after my divorce was finalized. 23 years of marriage down the drain, and I needed to get away from everything that reminded me of failure. Thailand seemed safe enough, far enough, different enough to help me forget. I wasn't looking for love. Hell, I wasn't looking for anything except maybe some peace and decent weather. But then I met Anchana at Wat Chedi Luang Temple in Chiang Mai, and everything changed. She was working as a tour guide, 24 years old, with this smile that made you forget about everything else. Most tour guides in Thailand, they're hustling you from minute one, trying to sell you something, take you shopping, get their commission. Anchana was different. She spoke perfect English, asked me real questions about my life back home, seemed genuinely interested in me as a person, not just another walking wallet. "You seem sad," she said that first day, after showing me around the temple. "What happened to make you so sad?" Nobody had asked me that question in months. Not my friends, not my family, not even my therapist. I found myself telling her about the divorce, about feeling lost, about not knowing what to do with the rest of my life. She listened without judgment, without trying to fix me or offer empty platitudes. We spent that whole afternoon talking, and when she offered to show me more of the real Chiang Mai the next day, I said yes without hesitation. My 2-week vacation turned into 3 weeks, then 4. I extended my stay twice, making excuses to myself about wanting to see more of the country. But really, I just couldn't leave her. Looking back now, I can see how perfectly she played that first meeting, how she read my body language, my loneliness, my desperate need to feel important to someone. But at the time, it felt like destiny. Those first 3 weeks with Anchana felt like the most authentic connection I'd had with anyone in years. She took me to places tourists never see, hidden temples tucked into mountainsides, local markets where vendors knew her by name, street food stalls where she taught me to eat with my hands like a local. "You have to understand the culture," she'd say, watching me struggle with sticky rice and somtam. "Food is about sharing, about trust. You trust me to feed you well? Yes?" And I did trust her. Maybe that was my first mistake, but it felt so natural, so right. She never asked me for money, never pushed me to buy her things or pay for expensive meals. When I offered, she'd wave me away, saying family had taught her to be independent. She worked hard, sometimes 12-hour days with different tour groups, but she always made time for me in the evenings. We'd sit on her apartment balcony, drinking Chang beer and talking about our dreams. She wanted to travel the world, see America, maybe start her own tourism business someday. I told her about construction work, about building things that lasted, about the satisfaction of creating something solid with your hands. "You have strong hands," she said one night, holding mine in the dim light. "In Thailand, we believe strong hands mean a strong heart." I started imagining what it might be like to bring her back to Ohio, to show her my life there, maybe help her with her dreams. She talked about America with such curiosity, asking detailed questions about my house, my neighborhood, what it was like to own property there. "Must be very different from Thailand," she'd say. "Very quiet, very safe. I think I would like American life." The way she said it made me feel like I could give her something precious, something she'd never had before. Then one evening, sitting in that same spot, she looked serious and said, "Kenneth, I want you to meet my family. They have rice farm in Mae Hong Son, very beautiful, very peaceful. You would like it there." The way she said it, like it mattered to her, like I mattered to her, I couldn't say no. My mother always say, "You cannot know Thai woman until you meet her family," she explained. "Family is everything in Thailand. They will want to see what kind of man makes me so happy." That word, happy, it made my chest swell with pride. I was making her happy. After months of feeling like a failure, like I couldn't make anyone happy, here was this beautiful young woman telling me I brought joy to her life. The drive to her family's farm took 3 hours through mountains and valleys that seemed to get more remote with every mile. The road started paved in Chiang Mai, then turned to cracked asphalt, then dirt, then barely more than tire tracks through jungle. Anchana, who had been chatty and relaxed all those weeks in the city, became quiet, checking her phone constantly even though we lost signal after the first hour. "My family is very traditional," she explained, staring out the window at the endless green. "You must let me do most of the talking." "Okay." Sometimes they don't understand Western ways. I told her I understood, that I respected her culture, that I just wanted them to like me. She smiled, but it looked forced. "They will like you. You are a good man, Kenneth. Strong, kind, honest. They will see this." But something in her voice made me uneasy. When I asked about her family, she kept her answers short. Mother, father, and her cousin Plern, who lived with them. "Plern is special," she said. "She needs help finding good husband, someone who can take care of her, maybe help her go to America." I thought she meant special like shy or naive, not understanding yet what she really meant. The mountains around us grew taller, the jungle thicker, and I started to realize just how isolated we were becoming. No other cars, no villages, no cell towers, just endless green, and the sound of our engine echoing off canyon walls. "How much further?" I asked, trying to keep the nervousness out of my voice. "Not far now," Anchana said, but she wouldn't look at me when she said it. As we climbed higher into the mountains, I noticed her hands shaking slightly as she gripped the steering wheel. "You okay?" I asked. "Fine," she said quickly. "Just. Family make me nervous sometimes. They have high expectations." I reached over and squeezed her hand, trying to reassure her. "Hey, we'll be fine. I'm good with parents. Built half the houses in my neighborhood back home. I know how to talk to people." She smiled at that, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Yes," she said softly. "You are very good with people. That is why they will like you so much." When we finally arrived at the farm compound, I understood why the drive had felt so long. We were in the middle of absolutely nowhere. Traditional wooden houses on stilts surrounded by rice paddies that stretched to the mountains on all sides. No neighbors visible in any direction, no power lines, no signs of the modern world, except for a solar panel on one roof and an old pickup truck parked under a tree. The silence was overwhelming after weeks in bustling Chiang Mai, just the sound of wind through rice stalks and distant insects. Anchana's family came out to greet us. Her mother, a stern-faced woman in her 50s, who looked me up and down like she was appraising livestock. Her father, a thin, silent man who nodded once and said nothing. And cousin Plern. Plern was maybe early 30s, with wide eyes that never seemed to blink and a smile that lasted too long. The moment she saw me, something changed in her expression, like she'd been waiting for me specifically. American man," she said in broken English, clapping her hands together. "Very handsome, very strong." She rushed toward me and grabbed my hand in both of hers, holding it longer than felt comfortable. The family spoke rapidly in Thai, gesturing toward me, and I caught Anchana glancing between me and them with an expression I couldn't read. When I asked her what they were saying, she translated, "They say welcome, you are honored guest. They are happy to meet you." But the words coming out of their mouths sounded longer, more complex than her simple translation. I started picking up repeated phrases, the same sounds over and over, like they were discussing details, making plans. They served us an elaborate dinner, more food than 4 people could possibly eat, dish after dish of curries and vegetables and rice. Plern kept reaching across the table to touch my arm, giggling when I tried to use chopsticks, asking me questions in Thai that Anchana would translate as simple things like, "Do you like the food?" But Plern's behavior felt anything but simple. She stared at me constantly, followed my every movement, and whenever I caught her eye, she'd giggle and look away like a teenager with a crush. I tried to be polite, to respect what I thought was just cultural difference, but something felt performative about the whole evening, like they were all playing roles in a script I hadn't been given. Her mother kept asking about my work, my house, my retirement. Always through Anchana's translation. "Mother want to know if you miss working," Anchana would say, but her mother's questions seemed more specific, more pointed. At one point, Plern disappeared and came back with a photo album, showing me pictures of herself in different outfits, different poses, like a modeling portfolio. "Plern want to show you her pictures," Anchana explained, but the way Plern presented them felt like she was selling herself to me. That first night, Anchana and I slept in separate rooms. "Respect for family," she explained, though she seemed uncomfortable about it. They are old-fashioned about these things. I lay awake in the small wooden room, listening to the sounds of rural Thailand, insects, distant animals, the creak of the house settling. But I also heard voices. The family was having an intense discussion in rapid Thai, and while I couldn't understand the words, I could hear the emotion. Anchana's voice rose and fell, sometimes pleading, sometimes defensive. Her mother's voice was sharp, commanding. At one point, I heard my name mentioned several times, followed by what sounded like an argument. I heard Plern's voice too, excited, almost childlike, saying something over and over that made her mother shush her. The conversation went on for hours, voices rising and falling, sometimes angry, sometimes conspiratorial. I tried to make out individual words, but my Thai was limited to hello and thank you. When I saw Anchana the next morning, she looked like she hadn't slept, dark circles under her eyes, avoiding my gaze, picking at her breakfast without eating. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Fine," she said quickly. "Just family talk. Nothing important." But it clearly was important. Her whole demeanor had changed. Overnight, she was jumpy, distracted, kept looking at her mother like she was waiting for instructions. After breakfast, her mother took over as my host, leading me around the property with a tour that felt more like a business presentation. She pointed out land boundaries, explained about rice yields, mentioned several times how much the property was worth. "American husband bring good fortune to family," she said in careful English. "Foreign husband can own land, help with government papers." I started to understand that this wasn't just about showing me their farm. Her mother was selling me something, though I wasn't sure what yet. She showed me deeds, property documents, explained local laws about foreign ownership. "Very complicated for Thai family," she said. "But American husband make everything easy." Meanwhile, Plern followed us everywhere, asking me direct questions about my house in America, my retirement savings, whether I was lonely living by myself. "Plern very interested in America," her mother explained. "She want to learn about American life." But Plern's interest felt more personal than educational. She kept standing too close, touching my arm when she spoke, asking if I thought she was pretty. "You think I pretty enough for America?" she asked in broken English. "American men like Thai women, yes?" Anchana watched these interactions with a strange expression, not jealous, exactly, but guilty. Like she knew something I didn't. When I tried to catch her eye, she'd look away quickly, busying herself with unnecessary tasks. Day 2 brought even more bizarre behavior from Plern. She started accidentally walking into my room while I was changing, wearing clothes that were clearly chosen to get my attention, asking me to help her practice English in ways that felt more like flirting than learning. "You teach me American words," she'd say, sitting too close on the porch, her hand resting on my knee. teach me how to say, I love you, in English. When I pronounced it for her, she repeated it back while staring directly into my eyes, then giggled, like she'd said something naughty. She had a notebook where she wrote down everything I taught her, but the questions were strange, not practical English, but romantic phrases, terms of endearment, words for family relationships. How you say husband in English, she asked. How you say wife. How you say forever. When I told Anchana I was uncomfortable with Plern's behavior, she became defensive. You misunderstand Thai culture, she said. Plern just friendly girl. She want to learn about America. You should be kind to family. But kindness, and whatever this was, felt like two different things. Her mother continued the property tour, this time bringing out actual legal documents about land ownership and showing me local laws about foreign husbands and property rights. Very good opportunity for smart American man, she said, spreading papers across the kitchen table. Help family, help yourself, help Plern have good life. She showed me photographs of other foreigners who had married into Thai families, their success stories, their happy lives. See? American man. Thai wife. Very good combination. Everyone happy. That's when it started to click. This wasn't about Anchana introducing me to her family. This was about her family sizing me up for something else entirely. When I tried to talk to Anchana privately about what was happening, she kept deflecting, changing the subject, or finding reasons to include her family in our conversations. The few moments we had alone, she seemed nervous, jumpy, like she was afraid of being overheard. Kenneth, you worry too much, she said. Just enjoy time with family. They like you very much. But the way they liked me felt transactional, like I was being evaluated for a job I hadn't applied for. That afternoon, Plern's behavior escalated. She started following me to the bathroom, waiting outside the door. She offered to wash my clothes, to cook special food just for me, to massage my shoulders when I looked tired. I take very good care of you, she said in broken English. Better than anyone. You will see. Her mother nodded approvingly at everything Plern did, encouraging her, pushing her to be more forward. Plern, good wife material, she told me. Very traditional, very loyal. Not like modern women who leave husband. On day 3, they dropped the pretense entirely. The family sat me down in their main room for what they called a serious discussion. Anchana translated as her mother spoke in formal Thai. Plern has fallen in love with you. She wants to marry you. Family thinks this is very good match. I stared at them, waiting for the punchline, but everyone looked serious. Plern was nodding eagerly, her eyes bright with excitement. What? I said. I don't understand. I came here with Anchana. We're together. But when Anchana translated my objection, the family responded with confusion, like they didn't understand what I meant. Her mother spoke again, and Anchana's translation came slowly. They say Plern is better wife for you, younger, never married, very traditional. She will take good care of you. I looked at Anchana, expecting her to defend our relationship, to explain that we were together, but she just stared at her hands. Anchana, I said, tell them about us. Tell them we're together. She spoke briefly in Thai, but whatever she said made her mother laugh and wave dismissively. Then Anchana looked at me with an expression I'll never forget. Part guilt, part relief, part something else I couldn't identify. Kenneth, she said quietly, maybe this could be good for everyone. Plern gets to go to America. You get devoted wife who will never leave you. And I get my freedom to find my own way. The room started spinning. Your freedom? What are you talking about? She took a deep breath. I never planned to go to America with you, Kenneth. I like you, but I am young. I want to see world, have adventures. Plern, she just wants stable life. Good husband. You could make her very happy. That's when I understood. Everything, our 3 weeks together, the connection I thought we had, the way she made me feel like I mattered, it had all been recruitment. I wasn't Anchana's boyfriend being introduced to her family. I was Plern's potential husband being delivered to them. Her mother started talking again, and Anchana translated mechanically, "She says you are perfect for Plern. Older, stable, finished with wild life. Plern needs strong man to take care of her. Guide her. You need someone who will never leave you. Never divorce you. Like American women do." The casual way she mentioned my divorce, something I'd shared with Anchana in private, made me realize how thoroughly I'd been studied, analyzed, prepared for this moment. Plern reached across the table and grabbed my hand. "I love you," she said in careful English. "I be very good wife. Cook for you. Clean for you. Make you happy every day." Her smile was wide, but her eyes were vacant, like she was reciting lines she'd memorized. I stood up, my legs shaky, and said I needed to leave. That's when her father spoke for the first time since I'd arrived, in clear English, "Passport safe with us. You get back after wedding ceremony." My blood went cold. "What? Wedding ceremony?" Anchana wouldn't meet my eyes. "They have already talked to local official. Wedding can happen next week." The room was spinning now, and I felt like I might throw up. "You took my passport?" I asked, my voice cracking. Her mother smiled and patted my arm like I was a child. "Safekeeping. Very important document. We return after wedding. When everything official." I went to my room to pack, my hands trembling as I searched through my bag. My passport was gone. When I came back demanding to know where it was, her mother's smile never wavered. "Safekeeping. Very important document. We return after wedding, when everything official." I checked my phone. No signal. Hadn't had one since we arrived. I asked for the car keys, saying I needed to go to town, but her father just shook his head. "Road very dangerous at night. Better to wait." I realized they'd planned this perfectly. Miles from anywhere. No transportation, no communication, no passport. I was trapped. Anchana finally looked at me then, and I saw tears in her eyes, but she didn't apologize. "This is normal in Thai culture," she said. "American men marry Thai women for visa all the time. You should be grateful for such traditional wife." But nothing about this felt normal or traditional. It felt like kidnapping. That night, Plern knocked on my door wearing a thin nightgown, asking if she could practice English with me. When I refused to let her in, I heard her talking excitedly with her mother in the next room. They were planning something, and I was the main event. I pushed my bed against the door and sat in the corner, my mind racing through possible escape routes, none of them realistic. I was a 46-year-old man being held prisoner by a Thai family in the middle of nowhere, being forced into marriage with a woman I'd known for 3 days. If I told anyone back home, they'd think I was losing my mind. The worst part was the betrayal I felt from Anchana. Not just the lies, but the way she'd used my deepest insecurities against me. She'd known exactly how to make me feel special, valued, needed. And now she was sitting in the next room, probably planning her next victim while I sat trapped in this nightmare she'd created. By day 4, I was having full panic attacks. I couldn't eat, couldn't think straight, felt like the walls were closing in. Plern had ramped up her behavior, now openly calling me her husband and talking about our life together in America. She showed me pictures she'd printed from the internet of houses in Ohio, asking which one looked most like mine. "We live here?" she asked, pointing to a suburban home. "You show me American supermarket. American shopping mall?" Her questions were specific, detailed, like she'd been studying American life for months. Her father started discussing dowry payments I should make to the family, not asking for them, but telling me the amounts like they were already decided. "Very reasonable price for good wife," he said. "Only $50,000. Much cheaper than American divorce. When I said I didn't have that kind of money, he smiled and said, "You have house? Yes. You have savings. We work something out." They showed me a small house at the edge of their property, where they said Plern and I would live while waiting for visa paperwork. The house had one room, one bed, bars on the windows that they claimed were for security but looked more like a prison to me. "Very cozy for newlyweds," Plern said, giggling and pressing herself against my arm. "I make very comfortable for you." When I asked how long the visa process would take, her father said, "Maybe 1 year, maybe 2. Depend on American government. But you be happy here. Very peaceful, very quiet." The thought of being trapped in that room with Plern for 2 years made me physically ill. I finally cornered Anchana alone and demanded the truth. "You never loved me, did you?" I asked. She was quiet for a long time before answering. "I liked you, Kenneth. You are a good man. But love? Number. This was always the plan. My family needs money. Plern needs husband for America. You need. You looked so lonely, so desperate for connection. Everyone gets what they need." The casual cruelty of it, the way she said it like it was just business, broke something inside me. "So those 3 weeks in Chiang Mai, all of it was fake?" She shrugged. "Not fake. Just purpose. I am good at making men feel special. It is my job." I realized then that I wasn't just trapped physically. I was trapped in a nightmare where everything I thought was real had been carefully constructed lies. "How many others?" I asked. "How many men have you brought here?" For the first time, she looked ashamed. "Not many. Maybe 5, 6. Most of them smarter than you. They leave before." She gestured vaguely at the house. "Before this." "So, I wasn't even the first. I was just the first stupid enough to fall for it completely." That night, I made my decision. I couldn't stay another day without completely losing my mind. I pretended to go along with the marriage plan, nodding when they talked about ceremony details, even forcing myself to smile when Plern showed me the wedding dress her mother had bought in town. It was white, Western style, with a veil that looked like it had been used before. "You like?" Plern asked, holding it up to herself. "I be beautiful wife, yes?" I nodded and said, "Very beautiful," the words tasting like poison in my mouth. But while they were having dinner, I searched their house systematically. I found my passport hidden in a wooden box in her mother's bedroom, along with what looked like passports and documents from other foreign men. I wasn't the first, and I wouldn't be the last. There were photographs too, Anchana with different Western men, all of them looking happy, all of them probably having no idea what was coming. At dinner, I overheard them discussing when to contact the others and realized this was an ongoing operation. They weren't just running one scam, they were running multiple scams simultaneously, with Anchana as the recruiter and Plern as the unwitting bait. Late that night, I discovered where her father kept his motorcycle keys, hanging on a nail inside an old coffee tin in the kitchen. I'd never ridden a motorcycle in my life, but desperation overrides fear. I waited until I heard everyone sleeping, then crept through the house like a burglar in reverse, stealing back my own freedom. The floorboards creaked with every step, and I was sure someone would wake up, but the house stayed silent. The motorcycle was ancient, probably 30 years old, but it started on the 3rd try. I had no idea how to work the gears properly, no idea which direction led to civilization, but I knew if I stayed another day, I might never leave. I left everything behind, my clothes, my suitcase, my phone charger, everything except my passport and the clothes I was wearing. As I rolled the bike away from the house before starting it, I looked back at the dark windows and wondered how many other men had slept in that room, how many had been smart enough to escape, how many hadn't. The engine sounded impossibly loud in the quiet night, and I expected lights to come on, people to start chasing me. But nothing happened. I pointed the bike toward what I hoped was east and disappeared into the darkness, leaving behind the worst mistake of my life. The ride through those mountain roads in pre-dawn blackness was the most terrifying experience of my life. I'd never ridden a motorcycle, didn't know how to lean into curves, how to downshift, how to handle the bike on steep grades. I crashed twice, once taking a turn too fast and sliding on loose gravel, once when the front wheel hit a pothole and threw me off balance. Both times I got back up, bleeding and shaking, and kept going. The alternative was worse than broken bones. My hands were torn up from the crashes, my knee was bleeding through my jeans, but I barely felt the pain. Adrenaline was the only thing keeping me upright. I got lost repeatedly on unmarked roads that branched off in all directions. Some led to dead ends, some to other farms, some just disappeared into jungle. Hours passed before I finally found what looked like a main road, and even then I wasn't sure I was heading toward civilization or deeper into the mountains. The bike had no fuel gauge, and I had no idea how long it would run. Every time I saw headlights behind me, I panicked, thinking it was the family coming after me. Every approaching vehicle could be them. Could be their friends. Could be local police they'd convinced to bring back their crazy American guest. I started imagining what they'd tell the authorities, that I'd stolen their motorcycle, that I'd attacked their daughter, that I was mentally unstable. Who would believe my story over theirs? The bike started running low on fuel just as dawn was breaking, and I had no idea how far I was from the nearest town. The engine began to sputter and miss, and I knew I was running out of time. But just when I thought I'd have to abandon it and walk, I crested a hill and saw buildings in the distance, a real town with a bus station, shops, people who weren't part of the nightmare I'd escaped. I ditched the motorcycle at the edge of town and walked to the bus station, my whole body shaking from adrenaline and exhaustion. The first bus to Chiang Mai left in 20 minutes. I bought a ticket and sat in the back corner, paranoid that every Thai person who looked at me was somehow connected to Anchana's family. For the entire 4-hour bus ride, I jumped every time someone's phone rang, convinced they were calling about the escaped American. I kept checking my passport, making sure it was still there, that this wasn't all some elaborate dream. When I reached Chiang Mai, I went straight to the airport. I tried to change my flight to leave Thailand that same day, but the earliest available flight was the next morning. I checked into the airport hotel under a fake name and paid cash, afraid to use my credit card in case they were somehow tracking me. I spent that night awake, jumping at every sound in the hallway, expecting them to find me somehow. In the stark fluorescent light of that hotel room, I started processing what had really happened to me. How my loneliness after the divorce had made me vulnerable to exactly this kind of manipulation. How perfectly Anchana had played me, never asking for money so I'd trust her, making me feel special and needed, getting me emotionally invested before introducing the real agenda. How naive I'd been to think a beautiful 24-year-old woman would fall for a broken 46-year-old construction worker she'd just met. I felt ashamed, angry, and terrified all at once. Ashamed that I'd been so easily fooled, angry that they'd stolen my hope and twisted it into something ugly, terrified about how close I'd come to being trapped permanently in a forced marriage to someone who was clearly disturbed. I kept imagining what would have happened if I hadn't found my passport, if I hadn't been brave enough to steal that motorcycle. Would I still be there now? Would they have found ways to keep me there indefinitely? I realized how truly isolated that farm was. How easy it would be for someone to just disappear there if the family decided they were more trouble than they were worth. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how perfectly they'd chosen their location. No cell service, no neighbors, no way to call for help. They could have kept me there for months, years even, slowly breaking down my resistance until I agreed to whatever they wanted. By the time my flight took off the next morning, I was exhausted, traumatized, and completely broken. I didn't sleep for the entire 15-hour flight home, jumping every time someone walked down the aisle, convinced somehow that they'd followed me onto the plane. Back in Ohio, I couldn't tell anyone what had really happened. When friends asked about my extended vacation in Thailand, I said I'd gotten food poisoning and cut the trip short. The truth was too embarrassing, too bizarre, too much like the plot of a bad movie for anyone to believe. But the psychological effects were real and lasting. I couldn't trust my judgment about people anymore, especially women. Online dating became impossible. Every profile looked like potential manipulation. Every message seemed like it might be the opening move in some elaborate scam. I'd find myself analyzing conversations for hidden agendas, looking for signs that someone was playing a role rather than being genuine. Simple questions like, "What do you do for work?" or "Do you own your home?" sent me into panic attacks. I started researching online and discovered that what happened to me wasn't unique. There are entire networks of families in rural Thailand, Vietnam, Philippines running similar operations, targeting lonely Western men, usually divorced or widowed, building emotional connections, then springing elaborate traps. Some involve marriage scams, others fake pregnancies, others property fraud. The common thread is always the same. Identify the emotional weakness. Exploit it perfectly. Then cash in before the victim realizes what's happening. I found forums where men shared similar stories, though most were too ashamed to go into detail. The few who did sounded just like me. Intelligent, successful men who got played by people much smarter and more ruthless than they'd expected. One man wrote about being held for 6 months on a similar farm, forced to sign property deeds before he was allowed to leave. Another described a scheme where the family faked the woman's death to collect insurance money, then used her sister to run the same scam on the next victim. The creativity of these operations was staggering, and the psychological damage they caused was intentional. They wanted us broken, desperate, compliant. I wrestled with anger for months. Anger at myself for being so stupid, anger at Anchana for her lies, but also a strange sadness for Plern. In my calmer moments, I realized she was probably as trapped as I was, just in a different way. Her family was using her mental instability to run their immigration scam, and she was probably just as much a victim as their marks. I wondered if she even understood what was happening, or if she genuinely thought these men were choosing her, loving her. About 6 months after I got back, Anchana found me on Facebook. Her first message was casual, like nothing had happened. "Hi Kenneth. How are you? I missed talking with you. Hope you are well back in America." I stared at that message for an hour before deleting it without responding. But she kept messaging. Sometimes she was apologetic. "I am sorry about misunderstanding with family. They made me do things I did not want. I really did have feelings for you." Other times, she was manipulative. "Plern is very sad you left. She still talks about you every day. She thinks you will come back for her." And sometimes she was angry. "You are selfish, man. You promised to help Plern, but you ran away like coward. She is good woman who would have made you happy." Each message was perfectly crafted to hit different emotional buttons: guilt, hope, fear, loneliness. I blocked her on Facebook, but she found me on Instagram, LinkedIn, even sent messages through friends' accounts. She created fake profiles with stolen photos, always finding new ways to contact me. Each message was a reminder of how thoroughly she'd gotten inside my head, how well she understood exactly which emotional buttons to push. The worst part was that some small part of me actually considered responding. Not because I wanted to go back, but because the loneliness that made me vulnerable in the first place hadn't gone away. If anything, it was worse now that I knew how easily it could be weaponized against me. I eventually blocked every account I could find, changed my privacy settings, even considered deleting social media entirely. But I knew she probably had dozens of other Western men in her rotation, probably was running the same scam on someone else right now. The thought of another man sitting in that room, being told he was special, being prepared for the same trap, made me physically sick. I thought about reporting it to authorities, but what would I say? That I was emotionally manipulated into visiting a farm where they suggested I marry someone I didn't want to marry. It's not technically illegal, and I had no evidence except my own stupidity. The Thai police probably wouldn't care about some American who got his feelings hurt, and the American authorities had no jurisdiction over what happened in rural Thailand. I was on my own with this trauma, this knowledge, this responsibility. 3 years later, I'm still dealing with the aftermath. I've learned to be alone without being lonely, which is a distinction I never understood before. Being alone is just a circumstance. You can be alone and perfectly content. Being lonely is an emotional state that makes you vulnerable to people who know how to exploit it. I've also learned to recognize the difference between genuine connection and manipulation, though it took a lot of therapy and self-reflection to get there. Real connection doesn't make you feel like you're the most special person in the world right away. It builds slowly, based on actual compatibility and shared experiences. Manipulation feels amazing immediately because it's designed to hit all your emotional weak spots at once. The therapist I worked with specialized in trauma recovery, and she helped me understand that what happened to me was a form of psychological abuse. "You were groomed," she said. "The same way a predator grooms a child, except they used your adult insecurities against you." That word, groomed, made me uncomfortable at first, but the more I thought about it, the more accurate it seemed. Anchana had studied me, learned my triggers, created a false persona designed specifically to make me fall for her. I still think about Anchana sometimes, but not with anger anymore. Mostly with sadness for how calculating she was, how young she was to be so skilled at deception. I wonder if she was born that way, or if circumstances made her that way, if she actually believes her own lies, or if she knows exactly what she's doing to people. I think about Plern too, and hope someone in her family eventually got her real help instead of using her as bait for their schemes. But mostly I think about other men who might be going through what I went through. Men who are lonely after divorce, or retirement, or loss, who think they've found something real in Thailand, or the Philippines, or Vietnam, who don't realize they're being sized up for an elaborate con. The most dangerous scams aren't about money, those you can see coming. The most dangerous scams are about selling you the person you wish you could be, making you feel important and needed and loved in ways you've forgotten were possible. They're about hope, and hope is the one thing you can never get back once someone's stolen it from you. If you're reading this and thinking about that beautiful woman who contacted you online, who seems too good to be true, who wants to introduce you to her family in some remote location, trust that instinct. Sometimes too good to be true is exactly what it is. Don't let your loneliness make you vulnerable to people who see it as a business opportunity. Don't let your need for connection blind you to the warning signs. And if you're already in too deep, if you're sitting in some isolated place wondering how you got there, remember that it's never too late to run. Your life, your freedom, your sanity are worth more than any relationship, real or fake. Trust yourself. Save yourself. Because, in the end, you're the only one who can.